500 years ago, a German goldsmith, Johann Gutenberg, invented printing. He was the first to mass-produce writing with letters cast in molten lead. His invention brought about an information revolution. Within 20 years, printing had spread across Europe, and William Caxton brought it to London. As printing progressed, from Bibles to banknotes, from law books to bus tickets, from birth certificates to telephone directories, it became the crucial technology which allowed the modern world to develop in all its complexity. But now our way of life is to change fundamentally as the printing that Gutenberg invented becomes obsolete. Printing still looks the same. We still smear ink over raised images and press them onto paper. But there is a new technology quietly revolutionizing the printed word we know, and it is in the newspaper that it has made its first appearance. Here at the Los Angeles Times, one of the most technically advanced papers in the world, the printing plates that rolled out last Sunday's paper were created by the new technique. Every bit of the text of this 500-page Sunday edition of the Los Angeles Times passed through one of the computers in this room, the new publishing system of the newspaper, which is housed over there. And this room houses all the other computers used in this enormous newspaper. For instance, behind me, that row of objects looking like washing machines house 3 years of the full text of the newspaper. The others hold the text of the current issue, as it's edited, shuffled, and laid out on pages. The printers who used to handle hot metal type now shunt this text about inside the computer using new tools. This advertisement is being set on a cathode ray tube, a television screen. The blocks of text are being manipulated with a light pen. The printer simply issues instructions to change the position, the typeface, and so on, as he thinks best.
Yeah, it looks good.
The computer only makes a really sharp copy on paper at the end of the process. The printing plate is made from the computer output photographically. Simple classified advertisements are typed directly into the computer. Working in clusters of terminals, these girls are printing workers. They take down the advertisements by telephone, automatically checking the advertiser's credit and billing him. The text they place in the computer is the only physical copy made of it before it appears on the page. This enormous room is much more than a labor-saving device. In it, you can see and feel the information revolution. They handle several million small ads a year, and the pages are created automatically. The computer sorts them and sets them, so the Fords for sale are put after the Cadillacs, the masseurs and window cleaners end up together on the work wanted pages. The pages of small ads are almost complete. The empty space is being left for a display advertisement. The news and features are also set by computer. But at the present stage of development, the final paste-ups from which the plates are made are still put together by hand. Angelo Musante is the man in charge of computerization at the Los Angeles Times. I asked him for his vision of the paper's future.
We drew a diagram, I recall, in the very beginning that said if we can assist the assembly of news and of associated advertising that makes up today's printed newspaper, if we can assist that process with the computer, then though our immediate end result is still to go to the printed page and by distributor and carrier boys to the home, that we're building for a possible future when the delivery of the computer-assembled news to the home would not be via the printed page, but perhaps by some electronic transmission.
In one sense, it's already here. View data or videotex is a new medium which is being pioneered in the British Post Office's Prestel service. Prestel's information is stored in one huge computer and passes along a normal telephone line into a television receiver, and the information can be received on request. Already, around Prestel, a huge new industry is springing up. This is one of the new Prestel publishers, Mills & Allen. They rent 10,000 pages from the post office for a penny per day per page, and they pay £4,000 a year for the special number that customers use to dial up their text. For instance, they offer 70 pages of world news called Viewpoint London. To write Viewpoint, they've hired a freelance journalist, Nicole Segre.
Yeah, okay. There's some more stuff about Sweden. But
Oh, I haven't seen it.
oh, and more about the Swiss too. I've had enough of them for the moment.
Sweden.
They can update Viewpoint London from their office as often as they wish, and they publish these pages without getting any direct revenue from the reader. They get money from the advertising.
Right.
The page is directing you to more pages that the publisher has sublet to the advertiser, which he uses to give more information. They charge for designing and updating these pages. Some of their pages you do pay for. For one of the jokes, a half penny is added to your telephone bill, which the post office passes on to Mills & Allen. There's a great variety among the 139 different information providers. The Meteorological Office sells a weather forecast for 3 pence. You can buy wine to be delivered to your home by punching your credit card number into the keypad. Or you can check the number of Pan Am standby seats still available at 2 o'clock for today's flights. Such perishable information is particularly suited to the Prestel system. Computerization of information is already transforming libraries. Look, for example, at this one periodical, Chemical Abstracts. It fills all of these shelves on both sides of the stack. For 75 years, it's appeared every month, listing and summarizing every piece of new research in the field of chemistry. This collection really represents the summation of the world's knowledge of chemistry. But see this, these 3 volumes are the bound text for 1907, the first year of publication, and they cost just £2. Now compare them with 1978. To subscribe costs nearly £3,500. Printing has simply become too expensive a technique for circulating knowledge about chemistry. But the real problem is that it's become extremely difficult to find out actually what you want to know. Supposing, for example,
I want to know about the toxic effects of the chemical chlorophenols in circumstances of pollution, such as those that occurred at the Seveso incident in Italy in 1976. I'd have to look in the subject index under toxicity, pollution, chlorophenols, and then I'd look up Seveso to see if anything has been written about the incident itself. And what I'd be needing were those few pages in which all 4 of those topics are dealt with in combination. It could take several hours to find what I needed.
However, if you use one of the new computerized databases, these difficulties evaporate. On these disk files, text can be stored. One disk pack stores 10 million words, and all of those words are all available instantly. As the disk spins, fingers that read the words reach in and pick out anything from anywhere in the text.
I'm connected via this terminal and a telephone line and a satellite to a computer in San Francisco which stores the whole of the index to chemical abstracts. And if I type in the topics that I need to know about, it searches its files in a split second, going through millions of words, and tells me exactly how many times my topic is referred to. So I'll start with pollution. Double S for search. Question mark. And then we look for our second topic, which is toxicity.
And I've got more than 23,000 references to pollution, and then 23,000 references again to toxicity, and for both together, there's 44,000.
And my third topic is the chemical chlorophenol, if I spell it correctly. We only really want to know when it's in conjunction with the others, so let's see how many we get when all 3 topics are referred to. And the answer is there are 859 references to chlorophenol and 89 which refer to all 3 of those topics. Now, I've got a special interest in Seveso, so I'll ask for that. And the answer is that there are 25 references to the Seveso incident, but only 1 in which all 4 of our topics exist in combination. And let's get the title of that one abstract in chemical abstracts. And there it is, the full title of the article which will give us the information we want. I now know exactly where, in the whole mass of chemical abstracts, I can find the one bit of information I need. But of course, this equipment only helps me through the index. One day, of course, the whole text might be computerized so that I could dispense with the physical copy altogether. What's emerging is a new kind of library with a new structure of knowledge built into it. And in due course, that's bound to change our attitude to knowledge.
Research problem I'd like to enlist your aid with.
Okay.
In particular,
The magnificent library of one of the largest law firms in California, a firm which specializes in gigantic inter-multinational lawsuits.
Which bear on this question, but I'd like to see if we might be able to find some case law.
Okay.
Which would...
But the lawyers hardly use their beautiful leather-bound books anymore.
Sounds like a good place to start would be a Lexis search.
I think that would be a good idea. In particular,
They interrogate a
concerned with
database
whether the
called
computerized
Lexis
material
to find all the
violates
judgments and
computers'
rulings relevant to a
and
particular
we want
case.
to concentrate our search on finding
Lexis
some
contains not abstracts, but the full text of all the precedents of US law. It's a replacement for the books.
Okay.
I think I'll try and connect the concept of data or materials or input and output with computer, and then get at the concept of evidence.
It costs about $150 an hour to use, but it's always right up to date. Clerks are sitting in the law courts all across the United States, and as the judges make their rulings, Lexis is updated.
That's right on point.
Okay, I'll print these for you, and then you can go out in the library and take a look at them.
Fine.
What will this device mean to the learned professions?
I think this will have a great impact not just on the legal profession, but on every profession. There's no reason why basic medical information, which is now generally hidden away in textbooks and other publications to which lay people generally do not seek access, why that information could not be available on a home computer screen if we come to the time when such screens are common. The same thing is true for basic legal information, and so on and so forth.
Why are these changes happening so quickly? The buzzword answer is convergence. Computers evolved to use tiny digital pulses of electricity to process information. Then the same pulses were used for computers to exchange information via satellite or ground line. Now, word processors convert their text into the same digital pulses. So now text is transmitted over the network indistinguishable from computer traffic. And this is now happening with voice as well as text. Modern telephones convert their signals to digital pulses. And the new telephone exchanges are simply computers. So all of these once independent information channels have converged into one technology. And the ubiquitous building block of that technology is the silicon chip. It's impossible to tell just by looking what's being manufactured here. It could be the works of a telephone exchange, or part of a national intelligence service. It could be part of a new newspaper publishing system, or a section of a modern bank. It was printing which made the huge complexity of the financial world possible. And today, were it not for convergence, the sheer quantity of bank transactions would have created an excess of paperwork. Today, 95% of all checks are sorted by computer. Your account is held on a magnetic disk of exactly the same kind as that which holds chemical abstracts. When you make any transaction, within 1,000th of a second, the place on the disk is found and your file updated. At this stage in its computerization, banking looks exactly as it always has, even though behind the scenes these rows of machines have replaced the thousands of clerks with their paper files. In fact, all of the accounts of the huge National Westminster Bank are held in just 48 disk drive machines. Now that money is held electronically, a fascinating transformation has begun. For some time, large firms have been using computers to work out their employees' wages and to issue computerized payslips. But now, the actual money transaction takes place without any paperwork at all. Instead of drawing out a bag of cash, the firm pays the tape into their bank, and their bank delivers it here. On the tape are the names, bank account numbers, and salaries of all the employees. And when the tape is run, a deduction is made from the firm's magnetic file, and the electronic cash flashes directly into the employees' accounts. Already, an international network has been set up to allow money to flow across the world. It's a growing network. Money is being transmuted into information. Another aspect of our lives now changing is the office. Mr. Wilcox is about to telephone his landlord, the Southwest Development Corporation. He's dialing their number, but the girl who is about to answer this call has never heard of the Southwest Development Corporation.
Good morning, Southwest Development. May I help you?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the person in charge of the apartment where I live, the Rossmore. I don't remember the name.
And at this instant, she has no idea who that might be.
Okay, that's either Fred Kirby or Don Allison.
That's right, it was Kirby. Kirby's the name.
Okay, who's calling, please?
My name is Roger Wilcox, and it's really important I speak with Mr. Kirby before I leave town.
Mr. Wilcox, Mr. Kirby left a message for you. Southwest Company will pay for all damages resulting from the water leak in your apartment.
The operator works for Delphi, a Californian company which is pioneering a new computerized telephone service. The girls are guided by a computer through the information that firms have left about themselves, so a caller doesn't know he's talking to an answering service. Here's how Mr. Wilcox's call was handled.
Good morning, Southwest Development. May I help you?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the person in charge of the apartment building I live in, but I can't remember his name.
Okay, that's either Fred Kirby or Don Allison.
That's right, it was Kirby.
Okay, who's calling, please?
My name is Roger Wilcox, and it's really important that I talk to Mr. Kirby before I leave town on business.
Mr. Wilcox, Mr. Kirby left a message. Southwest Company will pay for all damages resulting from the water leak in your apartment. Please mail in your estimates.
That's great. That's why I was calling. Tell Mr. Kirby thanks, and I'll send him the estimates next week.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Delphi is more than a sophisticated answering service. It actually begins to be an electronic substitute for certain kinds of office work. Clients collect their messages by calling Delphi's telephone number. They give their private access code. It's punched in, and their messages flash up.
Good afternoon, Roberta speaking. May I help you?
Once technologies converge and telephones can talk to computers, new things become possible. We live only at the beginning of a process of change which can already be seen at work in our society. Look back at the last century. Before the age of industry, most people, about 95%, worked on the land, and the rest did manufacturing and administrative jobs. In the course of a century, more and more people moved into the factories, and by the Second World War, only 5% were left on the land. Agricultural society had changed into industrial society. But since then, the number of people actually working in production has fallen, while the number of office workers has steadily grown. Today, over half of all jobs consist in handling information. We are becoming an information society.
In the next decade, we will expand our role in the world's fast-moving financial market, and we will need a new communications concept.
Citicorp, a giant American company, has made a prediction of their future. It's a prediction that is widely accepted by the big multinationals.
The new communications system that our managers need to maintain our lead in the intricate global market is the Integrated Electronic Office.
I'm a Citicorp Senior Vice President. This is my office. It has a reception area, a work area for my secretary, a conference area for sharing information, and my workspace. Here's how I started my day. When I got in this morning, I turned on the office. When I settled down in my private work area, I started through my incoming mail. While I was going through my mail, the phone chimed often. I checked to determine who was calling before I answered. Most of the callers could wait, so I hooked them into an auto-answering program on my computer. When my boss rang, I accepted the call. Good morning, how are you?
You may or may not enjoy the thought of this sanitized and deodorized, paperless office of the future. There are, however, some rival predictions on offer, among them that of a work-at-home movement, said shortly to be about to disperse the population into the distant countryside.
Sure.
Peter and Trudy Johnson-Lenz live in Oregon. For 5 years, their working lives have been built around an experimental private computer network called EYES.
Amazing messages we get today.
Okay.
There we go.
We had 6 messages waiting earlier. I don't know how many we have now.
Their several hundred colleagues are people whom they've never met except electronically. They earn their keep by doing research through remote access to various databases. They are consultants who write reports for government agencies and research committees. Very seldom do they travel far from the remote community in which they choose to live.
Okay. 21849 by 700. Oh, good. He received that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'd like to hear what he has to say.
Receiving and sending messages when they wish means they're freed from the need to communicate in real time.
I don't know what your plans are, but if possible, I'd like to send a couple messages myself and then spend the rest of the afternoon working on the network paper and have you answer some messages on the machine, if that's okay.
Right. Why don't we make a note of that to...
Okay. Do you want to just write it down
Sure, yeah.
there? I think that's about enough for today because we wanted to take the kids to a movie later. That seems like about the right amount of work for the afternoon.
I think so.
They explain that the absence of outside constraints has forced them to organize their time rather more carefully, or else they work too many hours. Theirs is a different view of the future from that of Citicorp.
I tend to think the future is going to be much more pluralistic. There'll be many different possible life and lifestyle forms in the future, but we hope that the future that we're a part of will be heavily involved with networks and ad hoc groups coming and going.
The hardware computer networks are inexpensive enough and can be owned locally so that a small group of people could set up their own network very quickly and very easily and not have to concern themselves with the larger flows in society.
I guess we're very convinced that the world is really changing into the post-industrial society, which people have variously called the communications era or the information age, the ideo-emergent era. There are a lot of different terms for it, but I think that's going to be based much more on information flow between people and communication than it is going to be on the production of goods. And I think that's the direction we see networks moving, providing specialized communication services to people of all sorts. Stamp club people can use a system like this to exchange, as well as people interested in solar energy or holistic health or all sorts of different kinds of things. It's not just for knowledge workers in some academic sense, but I think it's a people kind of exchange system.
Computer networks are already big business. This is the central control room of TimeNet. For a fee, they will carry your data around the world. From here, they route your data through their hundreds of switching centers. They lease time on existing telephone lines, and the lines are already becoming saturated. In the United States, the whole legal framework is being changed to force new networks to grow rapidly. New computer networks are being planned, which will be much more independent of the telephone system. Xerox is asking for permission to hire time on a satellite to interconnect the office equipment they sell. In 5 years' time, they want to set up a system able to send letters and invoices, telephone calls, files from machine to machine, from a room in one city to a room in another, all at a fraction of the present cost. The second great rival in the competition is ACS, Advanced Communications Service, being offered by America's giant telephone company, AT&T. But in the lead of the network race is SBS, Satellite Business Systems. Unlike their rivals, they're launching their own exclusive satellite. They show what they plan to do in their own cartoon.
There is a way to integrate all of a company's telecommunications, voice, computer data, facsimile and electronic mail, and teleconferencing into a single system. In the SBS service, all information is converted to a common form, a clean digital signal of off and on pulses, which flows to a ground station. Such a ground station, which includes a small antenna, is located at each of a customer's major installations around the country. As each ground station receives its cue, it sends off its signals in a concentrated burst to the SBS satellite, which catches them and instantly retransmits them back to Earth.
For SBS, it's imminent. All the technical equipment has been designed and tested and is now being manufactured and installed. Their satellite is almost complete. SBS plan to begin their service from January 1981. Their satellite will take its place among all the other hardware now circulating the planet. As the technology of the information age spreads with ever-increasing speed, as it becomes more and more powerful, can we foresee any of the cultural changes that lie ahead? Can we know what the haze of electronic pulses will do to our way of life?
In fact, so complicated is it to try and work out the implications for human society of the present information revolution that it's worth looking back 500 years to the last information revolution and to see the ways in which that altered the organization of human society. At that time, Gutenberg introduced his printing press and signaled the end of a system by which the multinationals of the time, the abbeys and the monasteries, monopolized the whole of human information.
The monastic scribes controlled the copying of manuscripts, the medieval database. They sat and copied the great religious works, each one carefully and painstakingly written out by hand. They were very beautiful, but not numerous, and as a source of information, they were ultimately as limited as they were expensive. Printing intruded into that system and transformed it. Originally invented just to mass-produce Bibles, it soon gave birth to the idea that you could write, print and publish original works, personal thoughts, stories, manuals and so on. Suddenly, there were more books on more subjects for more people than ever before.
Quite apart from the sheer quantity of information which the printing press provided, it began to exercise quite quickly a series of rather subtle but very far-reaching influences in human society. The first of these lay really in the fact that the printing press enabled people to get hold of books in the languages they actually spoke, and Latin began to cease to be the international language and began to be a dead language.
Printing created a new awareness of the geographical boundaries between different languages, and as the printed language established itself as the official language of king and church, so each nation became more aware of its own identity, and the idea of the nation-state began to take on its modern meaning.
But of course, the printing press exercised divisive influences as well as unifying ones, because it helped to create the notion that each individual was responsible for his own private realm of knowledge and opinion. And within a few decades of Gutenberg's invention, there broke forth in Europe a tremendous printing press-born war of heresies and schisms and factions, pouring out tracts, lampoons, disputatious writings of every kind in the furtherance of small private causes. But the third great influence was the creation of bureaucracy. Printing made it possible for an army of administrators and lawyers to function between the sovereign and his people. And indeed, within a few decades, the market for law books was as great as the market was for religious books and Bibles. All the regulations of exchequers and ministries became written down, and it became possible to spread the authority of a state by this artificial means beyond the personality of the king and his court. Perhaps the most striking result of printing was that it gave rise to new forms of censorship. As printed information began to circulate, governments everywhere woke up to the reality of its effects, and the result was that they jumped on it. Even after 5 centuries, we haven't finally settled where the rights of individuals end and the responsibilities of government to protect society begin. And all of those phenomena began to affect society really rather slowly. And so it's not easy to say how the new networks and new ways of handling text are going to influence the institutions of today. But for the rest of this program, that's what we're going to try to do, to examine some of the more far-reaching and subtle ways in which the new information technologies are influencing our society.
No nation in the world is as sensitive to the coming information age as the Japanese. No other people are making such intensive industrial preparations. But nor will any other nation's culture be so deeply and quickly affected. In the late 60s, the Japanese decided to restructure their industry. Heavy engineering, which has been the keystone of their post-war industrial strength, is being phased out. One reason is that such industries provide too few jobs for an educated population. 34% of the Japanese workforce have been to high school. Another reason is that the old industries use huge amounts of imported oil. Japan's new industrial base consists of factories like this. Since 1970, the government has provided private industry with 250 billion yen to tool up for the information age. At the center of the new strategy are the production lines for manufacturing silicon chips. But they are only the raw material for the real money spinners, the small business computers, the word processors, the air traffic control consoles, the telephone exchanges, the document copiers, the high-speed printers and the banking terminals, the basic hardware of the information age. The Japanese are set up to manufacture the universal bric-a-brac of a new civilization, one in which the processing of information is going to be the basic craft. But what is really rather surprising is that until this year, the Japanese have been unable to use this new technology in their own offices. In fact, they've not been able to use that most basic piece of office equipment developed over a century ago, the typewriter. Their offices are still in a pre-keyboard, almost Victorian era. Compared to the West, they need 50% more staff to run an average office. Without typewriters, the role of women in the male-dominated society of Japan has stayed restricted to counting money, to photocopying and filing, to posting the letters, to getting the tea, and to looking decorative. Letters are handwritten because until now it has been impossible to build a simple keyboard that can cope with the Japanese language. Unlike our own alphabet of 26 letters, the Japanese use upwards of 4,000 signs. It's only the few special documents, like for example contracts, that have to be typed. And to do that, the Japanese use very slow, expensive and cumbersome machines, like these in the typing pool of a large company. The typists have a long and tedious training. They have to memorize the layout of the trays of type that are put into their machines. It's the replacement for this machine that's now being developed. To see the difficulty, let's see why this typewriter has to be so complex. In the tray, there are two basic kinds of script. There are 60 kana signs, each of which represents one whole syllable. But the rest of the tray is filled with the Chinese kanji signs. There are 2,500 of them in common use. But many more are needed from time to time. As the typist picks her skillful way among the characters, she'll sometimes find she needs one from the cabinet. That contains the full set of anything up to 50,000 different symbols. Why do the Japanese need two kinds of writing, kanji as well as kana? All Japanese words can be written in the phonetic kana signs. For example, this reads, Hashi no ushiro ni kumo namiyamasu. The trouble is that as written, it's ambiguous. Hashi can mean bridge or chopstick. Kumo means both spider and cloud. So this sentence can mean, see the cloud or spider behind the bridge or chopsticks. The ambiguity is in practice avoided by replacing some of the signs with the Chinese kanji characters. The kanji do not represent sounds, they are ideograms. Each suggests an idea, not a word, rather like airport signs. This means men's room in any language. And this baggage reclaim. This telephone. In the same way, this symbol means male, female, central, and this unambiguously is bridge, and this cloud. So the ambiguous kana words are replaced by the kanji, and the meaning of each sentence then becomes absolutely clear. It's in the headquarters of the Toshiba company that one can see their new word processor, the first on the market in Japan. To type in, he uses the syllables of the phonetic kana script, and they appear unchanged across the bottom of the screen. Inside the word processor is a dictionary of 62,000 words. It looks up the words and translates them into the correct mix of kana and kanji, which begins to appear at the top of the screen. The words, which could have several meanings, are made to flash. After he has completed the typing, he concentrates on the flashing words. For each ambiguity, he's presented with a list of its possible meanings. He's shown the most frequent meaning first. He steps through the list of possible meanings and selects the one he wants. For the first time in their history, the Japanese can write their language rapidly by machine. The impact of word processors on the Japanese will be much greater than in the West. It could transform their business life.
アメリカの西部ですね、パターンになるんじゃないかということで、やはり世界的に心配なのはアメリカと中国の。
In Japan, a meeting is not held to argue out a decision, as it might be in London or New York. Everyone in this room has been consulted singly in advance, and they've come together to symbolize their consensus. It would be deeply offensive for anyone here to start arguing. The information has traveled through this organization by a process of social interaction. If they now create an army of secretaries, each generating text on electronic typewriters, one per man, they fear their whole structure of company relationships will begin to crumble. However, because of the strangest of paradoxes, the Japanese might be about to go beyond the age of secretaries and typewriters. In one leap, they could go into a more advanced version of office automation than anything in the West.
Tokyo. Tokyo. Tokyo.
Although written Japanese is difficult for a computer, in its spoken form, it's far, far easier for a computer to understand than English. Not the typewriter, but the voice writer is the Japanese technical quest of the decade. He is breaking the words into the simple syllables used to construct Japanese. He is saying, to Osaka by the Shinkansen Express train, 2 tickets please. And here's how the voice writer responds. This voice writer is possible because Japanese words are built from simple syllables. Ka, ki, ku, ke, and there are only 68 of them. They are the kana script. That makes recognition by computer of Japanese words far, far easier than English with our thousands of sounds. This is how the word Shinkansen is built of 6 sounds and hence 6 kana signs.
Shi. Ka. せ、
The voice writer recognizes these syllables, plus a few commands, like correct that
訂正、
and clear the screen.
削除。お、さ、訂正、訂正。お、さ、か、ま、て、点々、スペース、し、ん、か、ん、せ、ん、スペース、い、ち。
Here's how that sentence would sound if he said it in normal connected speech.
大阪まで新幹線1枚。
They hope to give the voice writer the ability to respond to such continuous speech by developing a machine they already have on the market. It will recognize words stored in its vocabulary, even if 5 of them are spoken as one continuous sound.
228, 829, 501, 260, 12345, 50970.
Rome, Oslo, Tokyo, Chicago, Sydney, New York, Berlin, Paris, London, Paris.
A continuous voice writer is thought to be 10 years away. But already, voice output is well developed. Instead of a computer typing at you, it can generate the sounds of a voice electronically.
コンピューターに情報を記憶させるには、記憶場所の名前と値を正しく。
At the flick of a switch, male or female.
西郷さんの銅像はどこにありますか？郵政庁は五反田にありますか？西郷さんの銅像はどこにありますか？
One of the first areas where this device is being used is in banking. In Japan, the banking system has remained very simple. People use money and pay in cash. Checkbooks and credit cards are very rare. For a big purchase, a house or a car, the banks will write a check out for you. But behind the counter, their banking is very modern. And in a new scheme, this computer is being given a voice. It will inspect a customer's file and tell him over the telephone who has paid what into his account. Miss Tanaka is going to pay 34,000 yen into the account of one of the 10 customers who are the first to be connected to this new service. She is paying the money into the Korai-bashi branch of the Sumitomo Bank in the normal way.
いらっしゃいませ。どうぞ。
The payment is punched into the bank's computer from the Korai-bashi branch terminal. Ms. Tanaka has credited that money to an advertising agency on the second floor of this building. They have asked that the computer inspect their account details and telephone them at precisely 4 o'clock. For the present, the computer calls the customer to guarantee privacy. But within months, the computer will be able to identify the voice of the caller, and then the customer will call when it suits him. The computer's call is made up of some carefully pre-programmed phrases, and inserted into them is the cruder voice that is generated from the information on the disk file.
Sumitomo Ginko テレフォンサービスでございます。コンピュータからすみともたろう様に振り込みのご案内を申し上げます。よろしければブザー音の後でどうぞとおっしゃってください。
どうぞ。
日は3月5日付でこ おらいばし支店普通預金に1件でございます。田中花子様から34,000円以上でございます。ありがとうございました。よろしければお電話をお切りください。もう一度お聞きになりたい場合は、どうぞとブザー音の後でおっしゃってください。
The new technology will quite simply abolish one feature of Japanese society that has always held it back. It could change much of Japan's way of life. Professor Inoue is one of the central figures in the Japanese move into the information age. He believes they will have translation by computer, at least for the restricted language of business, within 20 years. At the touch of a switch, English text will turn into Japanese text, and vice versa. He believes there will be the most fundamental cultural effects when that is followed by the translation of business letters into any language.
And I would think that in a decade or two, mechanical translation will become one of the very popular applications of computer technology. And if it could be done, then this will benefit to overcome the language barriers that is existing all over the world. In particular, for us Japanese, we, as you know, we have a big language barrier, and by which we could not understand others, and others could not understand us. But through this mechanical translation, even if it is the vocabulary or grammar is limited, then we can remove a great deal these language barriers.
Another culture, and here they are concerned about a different aspect of the new information technology. This is Sweden, and the issue here is personal privacy. The Swedes are worried that the details of, say, a person's conviction for dangerous driving or treatment for venereal disease could be searched and probed for in computerized records, and then used to influence decisions which other people might be making, say, to give a job or guarantee an overdraft. As long ago as 1973, they passed the first Data Act. In Sweden, it became illegal to set up computer files of personal records without getting a government license to do so. It became compulsory to inform a person of the information kept about him or her. The information could only be used for the purpose for which it had been collected. It could not be passed on to anyone else, and the Swedish government created the Data Inspection Board. It consists of 30 inspectors. Part of their work is to consider applications for licenses, but their major role is to police the databases to see that the laws are being obeyed. The Director General of the Inspectorate is Jan Fraser.
Privacy is very important. Personally, I am very interested in history and very often read historical books. And I have found that there has never existed any society in the world that has been able to survive without privacy. Privacy can be easily sold out, but it's very expensive to buy back if you need to do so.
In its first year, the Data Board received almost 16,000 applications to operate name-linked data files, company personnel files, bank records, medical records, and all government registers. There are now over 30,000 such files in Sweden. DAFA is Sweden's central government data processing centre. Inspectors from the board are about to carry out a spot check on some of the thousands of government files held here. First, they look at who has access to what rooms and what equipment. They are interested in security of the sensitive areas of the building, and they test its systems. This is the central computer room. In here there are many files on every Swedish citizen, and spread among those files is a variety of private and intimate detail. The inspectors check the security codes to ensure that, for example, the Social Security Ministry can't get access to the records of the Health Ministry. They run through some files at random to make sure all the regulations have been adhered to and that nothing is in the record which shouldn't be. But there do exist files which are more sensitive. The police of Stockholm are highly computerized. In the central control room, it's possible at any moment to key into the national police records and pull out the personal details of anyone a policeman may find himself interested in. Soon the patrol cars will be equipped with terminals. In Sweden, the police records must conform to the data laws too. They may not, for example, keep details of political activities, and it's the data inspector's task to see that they do conform. Police records are among the few files which private citizens can't see for themselves. Data inspector Thomas Oswald is checking on behalf of a man who thinks he's being persecuted because of inaccurate information held about him by the police. Under the watchful eye of a police superintendent, Thomas Oswald uses the police top-secret codes to search for the man's file. As the information was about to appear, we were asked to stop filming and leave the room.
We have received the information we wanted now here, and I think we also can state that this person has no reason to worry further.
We asked if there was anything on the man's file.
I cannot tell you whether there is anything on the file, no.
Could he tell the person concerned?
I can't even tell the person concerned, actually. I can tell him that we have made this investigation and that we have found no errors. And he has to be satisfied with that.
Sweden's particular concern with the dangers of the information revolution is typical of many European societies. In America, there is much more emphasis on the opportunities. In the White House, they are beginning to experiment with ways to transform government. Government is itself a great information processing device. What basically the White House bureaucracy does is to receive information from a wide range of sources. That information is progressively filtered and condensed as it passes up the hierarchy until it reaches the level where someone takes a decision. The Carter administration is beginning to incorporate the new information technology into its system, and Richard Harden is the mastermind behind this project. His title? Director of Office Administration and Special Assistant to the President for Information Management. Can you explain what electronics can do that simple human organization can't do?
Well, what you have now, and what has evolved here in this complex, is you have a group of individuals who are in effect filters, and at each level they decide what information gets passed up to the next level. The problem with that approach is that there's an ever-increasing demand for more filters, more people, as the amount of information increases. The other problem is that you're limited by the views and the ideas of the filter, of the individual doing the filtering, so that what might really be very important information to me as a decision maker sometimes gets filtered out by lower level people because they don't understand the problem in the same context I do. Now what we would like to do is structure the information in such a way that the executive is provided with a summary and has the ability at his own pace and in his own way to dig down into the detail, get to the specific information he likes, examine it, come back up, maybe pursue another path down.
But one most interesting change in American politics is taking place in the business of lobbying. Gone are the days when someone with an axe to grind merely took it to Washington. Some lobbyists now use the new information technology to achieve their ends. This is the headquarters of a powerful pressure group called the American Security Council, which presses for massive increases in arms spending. They argue that US presidents have allowed America to fall behind in the arms race in the hope of gaining agreement with the Russians. The president of the ASC is John Fisher.
The decisions that have been made to unilaterally disarm the United States and alternatively not to keep up with the Soviet Union have been decisions made by our leadership in Washington, not by the American people. The American people have not been aware until recently of what we've been doing to our own defensive postures.
The modern lobbyist selects carefully from the American people to create the pressure. In the quiet Virginia countryside, the American Security Council have a hangar filled with the very latest in electronic printing equipment. They can generate letters which appear to be personally written to you, but actually are turned out by the million. In the autumn of 1979, they were using this equipment to oppose the SALT II treaty that President Carter was hoping to sign with the Russians. Carter's military chiefs of staff publicly supported the treaty. To neutralize that, the American Security Council paraded a retired senior admiral, Thomas Moorer, who declared that SALT II would make America weak. And then they got 2,000 other retired admirals and generals to add their names. This became the basis of 250,000 letters to work people up against SALT II, to get them to petition their own senators against it.
And let's send a letter to the people who are listed in Who's Who in America and other opinion leaders. I think we have about 250,000 on our computer file now, asking them to back the admirals. On the letter, each one should be personalized, of course, to the individual, name, address, salutation. And let's just go through this and do a draft. Because you are an opinion leader in whatever city it is, just fill in the city. We invite you to join our National Advisory Board. New paragraph. You can make a big difference in the outcome of the fight.
The letter was typed into the computer, and the computer made the letter personal. To do that, it needed lists of names and addresses. Lists of names held on computer tapes are a key resource of the American Security Council. This particular letter needed two lists, one being the people from Who's Who in America, and from the second tape, the computer will select the name and address of each one's senator. Under Swedish data law, this kind of operation would not get a license. The text is put onto paper in the laser printer. What's so neat about it is that at 10,000 letters an hour, it merges the two names and addresses into a single personalized letter. The occasional hiccup simply means that the computer is waiting to find an address. And so they generate letters patriotically asking for help, firmly suggesting to whom the recipient should write, earnestly offering further information. The complete computer lobbyist. Each envelope carries its own stamp, so the letter doesn't get confused with the junk advertising mail. At the flick of a switch, vast quantities of political material are accurately aimed at the letterboxes of the opinion leaders of thousands of American communities. It's a finely edged political tool, for this mail shot machinery is not fired off blindly into the night. They only stir up the voters of those senators who may oppose the American Security Council's point of view.
We have a record in our computer of how the present members of the U.S. Senate have voted on national security matters since 1969. This is our National Security Voting Index right here. It's a reference tool in relation to getting information on these guys in relation to the SALT debate. It's important to use in predicting how these guys may vote. Now here you see we have an asterisk next to church, and that means that there is more information on church. This is programmed to list his past National Security Voting Index record. This is a scale of 0 to 100, and you can see he gets 2 zeros, 111 and 120, which is hardly what you would consider a positive rating. He voted frequently against us. And we have all these guys numbered, you see. The 1 means that we think he will probably vote in favor of SALT. And 1, for instance, like in the case of bumpers, 4 Goldwater, we mean he is probably going to vote against SALT. As an organization, we do not participate in elections, but we distribute the information on our voting index to newspapers. A lot of times they run stories on that, but we only distribute information. We do not get involved in any active political action.
In principle, all they're doing is telling people how their politicians are voting, and that if they don't like it, they should shout. But is the ASC using a new aid to democracy, or a new and subtle device of political manipulation? Does it give more power to the people, or does it subvert the political system?
I believe it is improving democracy, giving people an opportunity to participate in decisions which most powerfully affect them. In the past, the people have been paying attention to their own business. They have not been participating in society and democracy and government as much as they should have been.
You, like me, may feel you've seen enough of the kind of television documentary that tells you in tones of shrill certainty that your life is about to be transformed. And so I find it difficult to come to the end of this programme and say that electronic text is about to change your life. Yet that is what I want to argue. It's 500 years since Western man passed through a comparable change when printing was born. And at that time, changes took place in key areas of society, which are precisely the areas in which changes are taking place at the present time. For instance, printing helped to fix the boundaries between languages, and today the new information technologies are reducing the importance of language differences in international communication. And with that, there disappears one of the crucial factors which gave rise to the modern nation state. Printing played a part in the growth of political divisions in Western society. And the new information technologies are changing the ways in which public opinion is formed and brought to bear upon the holders of political power. Printing laid the foundations of the modern legal systems, the modern bureaucracies, the whole apparatus of the modern state, which eats further and further into the lives of ordinary citizens. And today, the crucial moral issue which faces the information age is the way in which those information technologies are increasing their intrusion into individual privacy. So does this program leave you optimistic or pessimistic? It would seem to me short-sighted and rather sad if we, in our generation, were to judge the possibilities of these machines only in terms of our immediate and apparent self-interest. The social consequences of the new media are going to be so extensive, so complicated, and ultimately so surprising that it's impossible to calculate them and foolish to guess. But if anyone wants to look beyond the rather horrifying confines of the 20th century, they do well to look at the possibilities of the new information technology. Because in a new technology, a society is in one sense showing the next generation its profoundest aspirations and fears. And in the sheer global reach of these new media, in their ability to overcome language, distance, time, and boundaries, they point the way, at least to the opportunity, of a new moral order. And I think that's the issue of the information age.